On today's Newsmakers, an actor's faith, Syrian chaos, and satanist antics. That and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each and every week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable news figures. On today's Newsmakers, we start off with actor Carlos Penavega, who joins us to talk about his inspiring new production company and how he and his wife Alexa have relied on God to navigate loss. We are going to get into all that and more. Let's welcome Carlos to Newsmakers. All right, Carlos, we're going to start. We got to talk about the movie, but we got to start with the production company because you and Alexa, you've got Good For You Entertainment that you guys have launched. Talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, we, ever since Alexa and I got together, our dream was always to create our own movies and produce them ourselves. Obviously, I feel like every actor or most actors, you know, they dream of that. And about 15, I'd say 12 to 15 years ago, I started, making friends with these two guys, Mike and George. And then Alexa came into the picture, and the four of us we just had a passion for creating. And we started storyboarding and making these different types of movies. And then we had a 10-year hiatus and didn't really speak to each other, little mini falling out. And about a year and a half ago, we got back together. We all got married. We all have kids, and now our kids are friends. And we thought, is this the time? Like, could we do this again? And we just kind of did it. And I pitched this idea to Great American Family. They ran with it. They loved it. And I asked, would it be possible if our production company, Good For You Entertainment, got to produce it? And they said yes. And it was kind of one of those moments where you call the group and you're like, guys, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And this was the coolest experience. We had our hands in every aspect of this movie. I mean, you name it, and this was our baby. So,
well, you guys have done everything too. I mean, you do everything from music to acting to producing. So being able to create something like this, I always say, I think it's a miracle to get a movie made. I mean, when you look at the whole process of what it takes, from the funding down to the mechanics of all of it, what's next for the production company? Like, are you guys looking beyond this yet, or are you so in it right now that you're kind of waiting?
Honestly, I can't wait for this week to be over. Since July, I have slept, everything, getting back for Christmas. So I think, one, we don't want to get stuck in this in this genre. We have some really great ideas. We're going to continue to try and make the movie and actually have it come out. But I think Great American, first of all, I thank them so much for giving us an opportunity. And I think it's going to pay off because we are kind of the young guns of this in this genre right now. So I think it's a fresh new take on these movies, and I think it will pay off. So thank you to them. But I mean, there's so many things. I mean, I really want to make faith-based movies that aren't bad. I want to make faith-based movies that reach the people who don't believe in Jesus, because to me that is the ultimate goal. Yeah. Right? Having people who don't believe in Jesus go, I gotta watch this movie, and then leave the movie going, oh, that made me think a little bit. Yeah. That's all I want.
No, I love that. And I got to ask you this too, because you guys have had a really crazy year, and I've been encouraged watching you guys navigate the year publicly the way that you have, with loss and just struggle. And here you are, you worked this entire year. You were both creative. You were doing all of this. How have you grown spiritually and I know this is sort of a loaded question, but in 2024, in light of all of it, the ups, the downs, everything you guys have gone through?
Yeah. God has just been covering us. We moved to Tennessee back in February after having this dream to sail the world with our family. I think the last time we talked, I was on a boat.
You were on a boat. Yeah. The last time we did an interview, you were on a boat.
Now, yeah. My background's quite a bit different. I'm catching up to you though, because yours looks so good. I'd say we've really been listening to God and just taking leaps versus baby steps, you know, like when he calls us, when he called us to move here, it wasn't like, okay, well, let's just see if it, 6 months. No, it was like, well, he's calling us. Let's go. Like, let's just, like, he will open those doors. And after, well, I mean, some people might not know, but my wife had a stillbirth with our fourth child in April. I think it was April, right? April 14th. Man, it just feels like times like this, but which was really hard. But God's timing with everything, getting us off the boat. He put us into this incredible place with so much community. We had found a church the week before that we loved, and Indy passed away on a Saturday, and then we spent the whole Saturday here at the house, kind of just processing and praying and mourning. It was just crazy. And that night, we were like, "Do we go to church tomorrow? Is that too soon?" And we're like, "No, it's not too soon. That's what we're supposed to do, and we're not supposed to be alone in this." So, me, Alexa, and our 3 kids went to church that next day, and we didn't know anybody. It was our second time ever going, and we were worshiping. And it's a smaller church, and I'll never forget that we're standing in the middle, and the worship team is in front of us, and Lex and I are holding each other, and we're just bawling. Nobody knew who we were, but the entire church surrounded us, laid hands on us, and it was like this supernatural peace just came over us regarding the entire situation. And it was like God saying, like, you're not alone. I got you, and I have you here for a reason, and I'm going to take, this and make it into something amazing. Like, just watch. And yeah, I just, it's been amazing to see, especially with Alexa, how much God has been working in her through this loss. Because how do you live after that?
Yeah. It's kind of amazing that you guys, I mean, you've been able to work. A lot of people would shut down for the year. They wouldn't do another thing.
I mean, you like, especially a wife who is literally carrying the baby in the womb for 8-9 months. Like, what? So the peace that we have over it, it's truly, I mean, I just keep saying it's just supernatural. Like God is just covering us, and we just have this really amazing peace that, he has a reason for everything. And he takes, whatever the enemy meant for evil, and, he turned it to good. So,
well, you guys are incredible people, and it's fun to watch you guys create. The film is Get Him Back for Christmas. Great American Family. Appreciate your time today.
No, dude, thank you. It's always so good talking to you, man.
Please continue to pray for Carlos and Alexa Penavega as they navigate loss and continue creating powerful Hollywood content. We'll be right back with more Newsmakers in just a moment. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Next up, Satanists are on an apparent mission to push back against Christian programs in public schools. Joel Penton, founder of LifeWise Academy, is joining us to reveal the surprising details of this interesting story. Let's welcome Joel to Newsmakers. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today. Satanists are offering a public program at a public school in Ohio. It's called the Hellion Academy of Independent Learning, also known as HAL. What do we know about this? Tell us a little bit about what you know about this program, Joel.
Yeah, well, the Satanist program it's going up, I guess, in Marysville, Ohio. It is explicitly a response to the LifeWise Academy program, which is the ministry that I help lead, and it's really hard to say what to know about it because the messages that we're getting from those who are launching the program are somewhat mixed. At times they will say this is explicitly an attempt to scare the school board and communities into shutting down all religious programs like ours, LifeWise Academy. Other times they'll say, oh, but you shouldn't be scared of this because it is going to teach kindness and values and that type of thing. And so it's not super clear exactly what the program is about. One thing that is clear is not only that it's a response to what we're doing, but it seems to be a last minute attempt to stop or delay the legislation that's working its way through the Ohio State House right now, which will give the right of religious instruction to all families.
So talk about that. Talk about that legislation, and we're going to get into more of what release time looks like and all of that. But what does the legislation that is working its way through the legislature look like? What would that give exactly?
Yeah, so when it comes to release time religious instruction, the Supreme Court has ruled that it's constitutional. However, state laws help explain how it's going to work in each state. And in some states, it is literally a right for parents, meaning there's a law that says if a parent wants this for their child, the school shall release them. So there's about a dozen states that have laws like that. Other states have language that doesn't use the word shall, it uses the word may, as in schools may release students. It's not required. And we, of course, are advocating for the stronger law. So we think that parents should have the ultimate say, not school boards, whether a student has access to religious instruction during school hours. And so there's legislation in Ohio moving through that will change Ohio from what we would call a may state to a shall state. So move control from the local public school into the hands of parents to decide for their children. We've been advocating for this. It's been a several month-long process. And here in this lame duck session, it looks very likely to pass.
Okay, so now you have that and release time. So we can go a little bit more into detail on this. For those who don't know, what you're offering through Lifeway, it is religious instruction during the school day and LifeWise, during the school day. Talk a little bit about what that looks like. Now, kids are bused during lunch, during free periods, outside of the school. Talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, what few people realize is that while in many ways Bible education and public school have been separated, what few people realize is that there is a legal path to have the two integrated, and it's called released time religious instruction. And the Supreme Court said, yes, kids can receive Bible education during school hours if the program's off school property, privately funded, and students have parental permission. Sadly, this opportunity has been somewhat under the radar for decades. However, our program, LifeWise Academy, we provide the tools and resources so any community can launch a local program. We guide communities through the process of first gathering signatures, then putting a leadership team together, and ultimately opening a program so kids in their community can sign up, the parents can sign up the kids, and one time per week, usually during, like a lunch and recess or library time or a special time, students can typically jump on the big red LifeWise bus and head down the street to the church down the road and receive a Bible education class, a gospel-centered Bible education class, right during their public school day.
This is not the first time there's been a purported response to what you're doing. You talked to me months ago about NBC. They did a very strange segment on your work, and we talked quite a bit about that segment. You've had people sort of coming after you on this, I think because it's been so successful, offering people who, and I want to emphasize this because we're looking at our public school system right now. A lot of people have concerns about what is being taught in that school system, about the lack of faith, about the fact that there's no discussion about anything eternal or important in the school system. And so you've created something where parents can have that for their kids off of school property. It doesn't violate the separation of church and state that everybody wants to argue about all the time. And so talk a little bit before we continue about your numbers, because your growth has been astounding.
Yeah. So to tell you a little bit about you want me to talk about the numbers first?
Yeah. Start with the numbers first, because I think it's pretty incredible when you look at your growth.
Yeah, well, it has been quite a ride because we started this program. The idea on paper was 2018 when we learned this was possible. So we said, let's try it. Let's create a plug and play program communities could implement. We launched in 2 programs in 2019. They went great. Of course, then COVID came and we kind of weathered that storm. And in 2020, we said, hey, let's set a 5-year goal. Let's try to serve 25 schools by 2025. That was our kind of catchy goal, 25 by 25. And here we are in 2024, and the Lord has been so good. We have more than 20x'd our goal. We are confirmed to serve over 600 schools this year, and that's across 31 states. And so I guess when we said 25 schools by 2025, we should have been saying 25 states by 2025. But even beyond that, our process to get started is through a local signature campaign, basically a petitioning process of local communities gathering signatures saying, hey, LifeWise, we want you to work with us to start one. And we now have thousands of districts across the country. In fact, over 6,000 districts, which is nearly 50% of all public school districts, that there's people in the community gathering signatures, beginning the work of starting local programs.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, breaking it all down for us as always. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
For more information on LifeWise, you can go to lifewise.org. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, we're sitting down with Joel Veldkamp. He is the head of international communications for Christian Solidarity International, and he's joining us today to break down the very real issues unfolding right now in Syria and to deliver an important history lesson. Let's welcome Joel to Newsmakers. Well, Joel, I appreciate your time, as always, helping us understand what is going on this time in Syria. We'll get into the more recent details, but let's start with the civil war that's been going on there for quite some time now. How did this begin? What has been happening leading up until now?
Well, Billy, in Syria, for the past 50 years, there's been one family that rules the whole country, and this is the Assad family. And they've been really brutal dictators, and lots of people have suffered under their rule. And in 2011, a peaceful uprising began against the Assad regime, and the Assad regime tried to crush it. And that's when things really took a strong left turn, because the US and Saudi Arabia and Turkey and some other countries had a strong interest in trying to push Russia and Iran out of Syria. And so they started sponsoring armed groups in Syria that were fighting against the Syrian dictatorship. Now, the Syrian dictatorship is a secular dictatorship. The dictator of Syria is not really an Orthodox Muslim. He's from a minority group called the Alawites. So he's regarded by jihadists as a heretic. And it turned out that the most effective armed rebels fighting against him were jihadist groups who also wanted to target the 2 million Christians living in Syria, the 2 million Alawites living in Syria, the many Druzes living in Syria. That's another minority group. And so the civil war really spun out into a terrible conflict where millions of people were forced from their homes, and the government killed tens of thousands of people, and many Christians as well were driven from their homes by jihadists and abducted and kidnapped and killed. And that civil war drug on for about 13 years. Now, for the past 6 years or so, the jihadists have been mostly confined to a small pocket of territory called Idlib, and the conflict was basically frozen there until literally 12 days ago, as we record this, when the jihadists, the terrorists, broke out of Idlib, drove towards the second biggest city in Syria, and just took it overnight.
Now, you talked about what happened to the Christians, in recent years, obviously under HTS. What happens to the Christians and other minority groups throughout Syria, not just in pockets, now the entire country?
Mm-hmm. So in the jihadist worldview, there are a few different levels of people under Islamic law, right? So at the top, you have Muslims who are members of the community, full members. Then below, you have another level for Christians. Christians are called people of the book. In the jihadist worldview, they're following a religion that was revealed before Muhammad came, but it kind of got screwed up. So they can keep their religion as long as they pay extra tax, as they don't own weapons, as they're not allowed to testify against Muslims in court, as long as they're subject to the Muslims. Then you have a third category, which is for heretics or polytheists, so-called. And jihadists put Alawites and Druzes in this category. And this is 15% of the country. And in this category, these people are supposed to be either forcibly converted or killed. So we're now in a very, very tense situation. We're hoping that it doesn't come to that. We're hoping that the jihadists don't implement their actual worldview here. And maybe they won't at first. But it's extremely serious. And if they try to implement Islamic law in Syria, as they most likely will, we have to ask the question, how many Christians are going to stay? How many Christians are going to accept this? This is a country that's been secular for over a century. So it's an existential moment for the non-Muslim peoples of Syria.
How do other countries factor in now? Iran, take us through that, because these are all complicated sort of relations. And we have to keep in mind, there's a border between Israel and Syria as well. I just want to remind viewers and listeners of that. And that's a whole other situation. But how do the other countries around factor in here?
I think actually the most important country to look at is Turkey. Turkey was giving some sort of unofficial protection to HTS in Idlib province. It was Turkey that kept the Syrian government from going all the way and destroying HTS 4 years ago when they wanted to do this. And it's almost certainly with Turkey's approval and foreknowledge that HTS launched this whole assault. So Turkey is really trying to expand its influence in Syria. They're making a move for Syria. Many Turks even see Syria as their traditional land. It used to be part of their empire. They want it back. And as your viewers will know, Billy, because you've been talking about this so much, Turkey is also fresh from destroying the ancient Christian community of Artsakh, or Nagorno-Karabakh. So we're really seeing Turkey is expanding its power and its influence in all these directions, and usually at the expense of the ancient Christian communities of the greater Middle East. I don't know if U.S. decision makers are fully aware of what's happening, that they're really enabling the rise of Turkey while they're distracted with Iran and Russia and some other things. But this is going to fundamentally change the balance of power in the region, and it won't be good for Israel. It won't be good for the Christians. It won't be good for anyone except Turkey, really.
Well, I so appreciate you taking the time joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Billy.
Please continue to pray for Syria and the entirety of the Middle East. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel. That's where you can find the full interviews you saw on today's episode. Plus, you can check out our daily Newsmakers podcast. If you're not subscribing, you want to do that right now. We feature one full interview every single day. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms. As for this show, we'll see you again next week.